It began on a rainy Tuesday night, when the CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire crouched in the shadow of a parking lot pillar, secretly following her janitor. Madeline Carter wasn't reckless. She was calculated, surgical in how she managed Colin's tech, but something about him didn't add up. Lucas Bennett, 35, janitor for the night shift, quiet, never late. But for 2 weeks now, his badge had been logged after hours near the restricted R&D wing. No camera footage, no complaints, no reason, except one: espionage. They were on the verge of securing a government AI contract worth over $500 million. A single leak could kill the deal. And Madeline, still raw from losing her 8-year-old son to a rare illness 6 months ago, had no tolerance left for risk. She could have alerted security, but tonight, she needed to see it herself. Rain tapped the roof of her Tesla as she watched Lucas step out of the building. No bag, no umbrella, just him, hood up, head down, walking toward the industrial district on foot. She followed from a distance, not close enough to be seen, but near enough to feel the mystery pull tighter around her with every step. What was a janitor doing in the city's rundown outskirts at 11 p.m.? 15 minutes passed. Then she saw it. Lucas stopped outside a red brick building with a faded sign. Hope Children's Medical Center. He pushed open the back door with familiarity. No key, just trust. Inside, light flickered. Madeline parked, heart racing. She crept closer, watching through the fogged window. He wasn't alone. Inside the staff lounge, Lucas pulled out a small-wheeled device made of mismatched metal, rubber grips, and an old tablet zip-tied to the frame. A child in a wheelchair beamed as he lowered the contraption in front of her. Madeline's breath caught. He wasn't stealing. He was fixing. Rebuilding wheelchairs from tech trash and designing custom-fit mobility aids from discarded Collins parts. For free. She watched him test brakes, adjust straps, and gently teach the girl how to use it. A nurse hugged him. The girl laughed. It was real. She didn't know how long she stood there, but something inside her cracked open. For the first time in months, Madeline felt something again. Not anger, not loss, but awe. The man she'd suspected of betrayal was quietly giving more than her own executives. Back in her car, she didn't start the engine right away. Her hands trembled slightly. Who was Lucas Bennett? Why did no one know what he was capable of? Why did she not know? She opened her tablet and pulled up his employee file. No infractions, no complaints. Former engineering student. GPA 3.8. Dropped out 10 years ago. Widowed. Custody of a daughter, Emma Bennett, age 10. A janitor, a father, a builder. She closed the tablet, rain now streaking the glass like tears she hadn't allowed in months. The next day, she didn't fire him. She invited him to lunch. But not as CEO. As a woman who wanted to understand the quiet man who had somehow rebuilt more than just machines. He'd rebuilt her curiosity. And Lucas? He had no idea who she really was, or why the most powerful woman in the company had just asked to speak with the janitor. Lucas Bennett didn't trust suits, and when one invited him to lunch, he almost didn't show up. He hadn't recognized Madeline Carter when she approached him in the hallway that morning. No power heels, no designer jacket. Just a slim charcoal sweater and quiet eyes that asked without demanding. She said she'd seen him around and was looking for a practical mind to consult on janitorial workflow. He'd hesitated, but something about her voice. It wasn't corporate. Now they sat across from each other at a corner table in a quiet cafe. Lucas still in his gray uniform, hands rough from solvents and late-night tinkering. Madeline stirred her coffee, watching him. Not like a boss evaluating an employee, but like someone studying a mystery she hadn't solved yet. I read somewhere that janitors know more about how a building runs than anyone else, she said lightly. Is that true? Lucas gave a short smile. Probably. We're the only ones who actually see the guts of the place. She nodded, letting silence fill the space. She didn't rush. She let him own the moment. Finally, he added, "But I'm not sure how much help I can be. Most people just want things clean, not efficient. That's why I'm asking you." His brow lifted slightly. "You don't seem like someone who asks." Madeline smiled, but her gaze dropped. "Maybe I used to be someone else." Another pause. Then, carefully, she asked, "That thing you were working on, the cart, the one you brought to the hospital." Lucas froze, just for a second. Then, a flicker of guardedness crossed his face. "You followed me." "I thought you were stealing from R&D, she admitted softly. "But I was wrong." Lucas looked down at his hands. "It's just parts no one wanted. Trash. Nothing I took was logged or tagged." "I know," she said gently, "but what you made wasn't nothing." He hesitated, his instincts warning him that this was too exposed. But something in her voice, in her eyes, told him it was safe to share. "My daughter, Emma. She was born with a spinal condition. Not serious enough for major programs, but enough to make her feel left behind." His voice caught. "The devices out there, they're either too expensive or designed for hospitals, not kids who want to live. So I started building what she needed, from scraps, from memory." "And the cart?" "AI-assisted diagnostics, basic vitals, posture adjustments, sensor feedback. It's rough, but it works. It's not pretty, but it listens to the kid." Madeline didn't respond right away, because she was fighting tears. That same idea, an adaptable diagnostic cart, was exactly what Collins Tech had tried and failed to prototype last year. Millions spent. Dead end. And here was Lucas Bennett, no degree, no funding, doing it alone in his garage. "How long have you been working on this?" she finally asked. 4 years, nights, weekends, after Emma goes to bed." She breathed in. "I'd like to see it. The full version. Your workshop." Lucas studied her for a long moment. "Why?" Madeline leaned in slightly. "Because I think I've underestimated the most brilliant mind in this building." And for the first time since they sat down, Lucas looked at her. Not as a stranger in disguise, not as a threat, but with the faint, cautious hope of someone who'd spent too long in the shadows. Then his phone buzzed. A text from the school. Emma had fainted during gym class. He stood up fast, already grabbing his coat. "I'm sorry. I have to go." "I'll drive," Madeline said without hesitation, rising to follow him. He looked at her in disbelief. "You don't even know where—" "Get in. I'll follow your directions." Outside, rain had started again, softer this time. As they rushed toward the parking lot, Lucas didn't realize something had already shifted. He wasn't alone anymore, and neither was she. The school nurse's office was too bright, too quiet, and Lucas Bennett hated how familiar it felt. Emma sat on the paper-lined cot, small and pale, but smiling bravely when her father rushed in. Her dark hair clung to her temples, and one sock had slipped halfway down her ankle. "I'm okay, Daddy," she whispered, trying to sit up. Lucas crouched beside her, voice tight with worry. "What happened?" "She got dizzy during warm-ups," the nurse said gently. Blood sugar dropped. "She's stable now, but you should follow up with her pediatrician." Madeline stood just behind him, unnoticed until Emma's eyes wandered past her father and landed on her. "Who's she?" Lucas glanced back. This is Madeline. She's from work. She gave me a ride." Emma blinked at her, then smiled. "You're really pretty." Madeline chuckled, kneeling beside them. "So are you, Emma. I like your unicorn socks." Emma grinned weakly. "They're lucky." It was the first time in months Madeline had felt anything but numbness in the presence of a child. Emma's voice was soft, her body frail, but her spirit was fierce. There was something in her that reminded Madeline of her own son. The memory pulled like a rip in fabric, sharp and sudden, and for a second she had to look away. Lucas caught it, that crack in her armor. But he said nothing. On the drive home, Emma sat between them in the back seat, sleepy but chatty. She talked about her favorite science book, her dream of designing shoes with wheels in the soles, and how her dad made machines that even the hospital people don't know how to make. Madeline listened, her grip on the steering wheel loosening as the walls around her heart shifted. Later, at their modest home, 2 bedrooms, cozy, lived in, Lucas invited her in. She hesitated, not because she felt out of place, but because she already didn't want to leave. The garage was tucked behind the house, its door old and creaky. Inside, it was another world. Diagrams covered the walls, sketched in pencil and taped next to hardware store receipts. A 3D printed leg brace sat beside a pile of discarded server fans. Old motherboards were labeled and repurposed. Everything was organized chaos, brilliant, improvised, alive. "This is extraordinary," Madeline whispered. Lucas shrugged. "It's just what I have." "No," she said softly, walking toward the AI medical cart. "It's everything we've been trying to build. You did this alone?" He nodded. "It started with Emma, but then I met kids at the hospital, wheelchair-bound, waiting months for insurance approvals. I couldn't fix their pain, but I could give them tools." She turned toward him. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone at Collins?" He looked her in the eye. "Because no one ever asked." Madeline stood still. The weight of his words wrapped around her. In the corporate towers, brilliance came with a resume, a degree, a corner office, but here it lived in a garage, in a father's hands, in late nights after dishes were done, and she'd nearly missed it all. Then her phone buzzed. Dr. Marcus Reed. "Head of R&D, she answered, stepping outside. "I've been reviewing internal logs," Marcus said curtly. "Night shift janitor's badge was flagged again. You want me to handle it?" Madeline paused. Her eyes drifted to the soft garage light behind her. Number. "He's already being handled." She hung up and made her decision. She would not let this genius go unnoticed a moment longer. Not because he needed saving, but because she did. Madeline Carter stood before the Collins Tech Executive Board, every eye locked on her, confused by the file she'd just dropped onto the conference table. It wasn't a contract proposal, not a quarterly report. It was a photo, grainy, taken in a dim garage, a prototype, wires, a touchscreen. Beneath it, a handwritten label. Adaptive Diagnostics Cart. Version 3.1*. Dr. Marcus Reed squinted. "What is this?" Madeline clasped her hands. "It's the most functional version of our failed medical cart project, built entirely from recycled components, and it didn't come from any of your labs." Murmurs stirred. "This," she said clearly, "was built by Lucas Bennett." Marcus frowned. "One of your engineers?" Madeline looked directly at him. "Our janitor." Silence. A few board members exchanged glances, trying to understand if this was a stunt or some twisted metaphor. But Madeline wasn't blinking. She was done with safe. She told them everything: the late-night badge logs, the hospital visits, the AI-assisted vital scanner built from scrap, the child who inspired it. She didn't reveal Lucas's personal grief, but she did say this: "While our labs spent 2 years failing to make something usable, this man built it in a garage, with no budget, no team, and no permission, because he saw a need and chose not to wait for approval." Marcus pushed his chair back. "This is highly irregular. He's not qualified." "Qualified by what metric?" she snapped. "Degree? Title? Have you seen the device? Tested it?" He didn't answer. Madeline opened the next slide. Clinical test data. Performance comparisons. The prototype outperformed every model the company had shelved. The boardroom grew still. "I'm starting a new division," Madeline continued. "Community innovation. a space for under-recognized minds, tinkerers, builders, people we'd normally overlook. She let the weight of that sit. Lucas Bennett will lead it. The CFO leaned forward cautiously. This man, he'll present at the next government pitch? Madeline nodded. With full technical backing, because when that agency asks us what makes Collins Tech different, I want them to meet the reason we still deserve to exist. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it passed. Later that day, Lucas was sweeping the north stairwell when Madeline found him. She didn't approach like a boss now. She just stood beside him, waiting until he looked up. "I need you," she said quietly. Lucas's brow furrowed. "You okay?" "No," she smiled. "But I'm getting there, and I think you're part of why." Then she handed him a badge, new photo, new title, Director of Community Innovation. Lucas stared at it. "This isn't a joke?" "No, I'm not. I didn't ask for—" "I know," she said, "but you earned it anyway." His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from disbelief, from the years of being unseen suddenly collapsing into this single moment of being seen too brightly. Later that night, when he told Emma, she squealed and hugged him so tight he nearly dropped the badge. "Does this mean you'll work in an office now?" she asked. He smiled. "Sort of, but I think I'll still keep a mop nearby, just in case." Madeline, watching quietly from the doorway, laughed. For the first time in years, the laugh was real. And yet, in a different corner of Collins Tech, Dr. Marcus Reed paced behind closed doors. He wasn't convinced, and he wasn't done. Lucas Bennett stood in the glass-walled lab that used to intimidate him, now marked with a small brass plate. Community Innovation Wing. Everything had changed, except him. He still wore his old boots, still brought lunch from home, still got his hands dirty wiring boards himself when no one else could. But now engineers addressed him as Sir. His name was in emails. He was asked to speak. Every day he found new hope until the day the sabotage hit. It started with a glitch. The AI medical cart, a newer, sleeker version of his garage prototype, stopped responding mid-demo during a high-level test with the government inspection team. It froze, rebooted, then flickered violently and crashed. Lucas's heart sank. They'd spent weeks refining it. It had never failed before. Dr. Marcus Reed stood across the room, arms folded, barely hiding his smirk. Later that night, Lucas stayed in the lab alone, going line by line through the firmware, and what he found made his stomach twist. Someone had slipped a bad update into the system's diagnostic subroutine, deliberately. He didn't need to guess who. The code was tagged with an internal ID. Reed's. Lucas hesitated. Reporting him would mean war. The man had tenure, allies, and influence. Lucas had a daughter and a prototype. He saved the log, printed the file, and drove to Madeline's house, well past midnight. She opened the door in a robe, eyes tired but alert the moment she saw his face. "It was sabotage," he said quietly, handing her the papers. She read the evidence in silence, then looked up. "This was meant to destroy your credibility," she said, "and it nearly worked." "I don't want to lose this, Madeline," he whispered, "but I can't fight a man like him and still protect my daughter. Finish the build, make payroll, run a team." Madeline stepped forward, voice like iron. "You don't have to fight him." He looked at her. "I will." The next morning, she stormed into the executive briefing with the printed firmware logs and presented them to the entire board. "I've tolerated Dr. Reed's arrogance for years," she began, "but I will not tolerate sabotage. Not against a project this critical. Not against him." Reed defended himself, called it a misunderstanding, a test gone wrong. But Madeline didn't blink. He wasn't just targeting the project. He was trying to erase someone he didn't think deserved a place in this building. The board murmured. Tension rippled. Reed was suspended pending investigation. Later, in her office, Lucas stood quietly, badge clipped to his belt, emotion raw in his voice. "You didn't have to go that far for me." Madeline turned. "Yes, I did." He swallowed. "Why?" "Because when I lost my son," she said, her voice cracking for the first time, "I stopped believing people could surprise me. But you did. You reminded me why this company matters. Why I still matter. I won't let anyone dim that." A silence settled. Then she added, almost softly, "Besides, it's not just about you anymore. It's about all the Lucases out there, all the Emmas. We owe them better." That night, Lucas returned home, carrying not just hope, but resolve. He sat with Emma at the kitchen table and showed her the final schematic. "This," he said, pointing to the sketch, "is going to help thousands of kids like you." Emma smiled sleepily. "Then don't stop." "I won't," he promised. And in the shadows of that warm kitchen light, something shifted again, not just for Lucas, but for everyone whose life would one day be changed by the machine he'd almost given up on. The spotlight felt hotter than Lucas Bennett expected. Rows of government officials, medical partners, and media sat quietly in the Collins Tech Auditorium. At the front stood the sleek, final version of his invention, the adaptive AI medical cart. All wires hidden now, sleek white shell, modular panels, a single logo glowing in soft blue. Bennett Series 1. His name on the product. He almost couldn't believe it. Madeline stood beside him, dressed in navy, calm and poised. But her hand, just briefly, touched his back in quiet encouragement as the moderator introduced him. "Please welcome the visionary behind this project, Director of Community Innovation, Lucas Bennett." He stepped forward, not as a janitor, not as someone filling space, but as someone finally seen. He cleared his throat, voice steady. "This began in a garage, with my daughter. She has a condition that makes mobility and independence harder than it should be. We couldn't afford what she needed, so I started building with whatever I could find. I didn't have a lab, I had love and desperation, and a fire that wouldn't go out." A murmur rippled through the crowd, but Lucas kept going. "This cart isn't just technology. It listens, it learns, it adjusts for children in real time. We built it to empower, not replace, caregivers and nurses. It's simple, durable, affordable, and built from the belief that sometimes the best minds don't wear lab coats." A pause. Then he turned to the cart, powered it on, and demonstrated a scan using a live volunteer from the children's hospital, a young boy in a wheelchair, giggling as the device chirped and adjusted. The crowd was mesmerized, and when the scan results appeared in seconds, clean, responsive, accurate, applause thundered. Madeline watched Lucas from the side. There were tears in her eyes, though she didn't let them fall. This wasn't just a product launch. It was redemption. Afterward, she found Lucas outside, away from the cameras, where Emma waited with arms wide open. "You were amazing," she whispered, hugging him fiercely. He knelt down. "You helped me do it." "I told you my socks were lucky." Madeline laughed, walking over slowly. "She's not wrong." Lucas stood, looking at her. The air was calm now, but heavy with a deeper truth. "Do you ever think," he asked, "we were meant to cross paths?" Madeline looked out toward the parking lot, eyes far away. "I used to think everything had to make sense, that life was math, control, measurable. But then I lost my son, and nothing made sense anymore." She turned to him. "And then I followed a janitor through the rain, and everything changed." Lucas said nothing, but his eyes held the same quiet understanding that had been there from the start. They didn't hug or cry, they simply stood there. Two people once broken, now healing side by side. Weeks later, the Bennett Series 1 cart would be approved for nationwide use in pediatric hospitals. Collins Tech's contract would triple. And the Community Innovation Wing would grow, full of garage engineers, overlooked minds, and first-chance thinkers. But on that final night, as Lucas closed the garage door and Emma tucked into bed, a letter arrived by mail, a certificate from the university he left behind. Honorary degree in engineering, awarded to Lucas Bennett. Below it, a handwritten note. For teaching us that brilliance isn't always in the classroom. Sometimes it lives in a father's hands beneath grease and sleepless nights. Lucas stared at it for a long time. Then he turned off the lights, walked down the hallway, and kissed his daughter's forehead. She stirred. "Night, Daddy." He whispered back, "Night, sweetheart." And just like that, the man the world forgot became the man who helped it remember what true innovation looks like.